Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Dale Barzi. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, I am very, very pleased to welcome Sara Grieshop out of Ohio, USA. And
Yes.
Sarah says she's been a nurse for 12 plus years. She's a nurse leader. She's a clinical expert and speaker. She says she's passionate about leadership and healthcare transformation. And right now, she plays a pivotal role supporting acute, progressive critical care community and delivering essential resources to enhance nursing practice and patient care. So, welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
It's my absolute pleasure. My pleasure. But first of all, why are you a nurse?
That's probably one of my favorite questions to answer, because I actually started as an insurance agent, and I
Okay.
quickly learned that was not for me. I love to take care of people, but I cannot sell you things that I don't believe in or don't believe you maybe need. I do believe in insurance, but maybe
Mhm,
not. I did a lot of life insurance and Medicare supplements. So,
mhm.
but what drove me to become a nurse was I actually was living with one of my girlfriends from high school, and her parents had been over to visit us, and we'd been at a football game, and they were killed on the way home. And her brother, older brother, survived. He shattered his both arms. He punctured his esophagus. He shattered his right leg, but he had no spine or head trauma. They were hit head on by a gentleman going about 96 miles per hour. And so it was amazing that he even was pulled out of
Wow.
the car by a bystander who just happened to go past. And naturally, I went directly to her side the next morning. When I woke up, I received the phone call from her boyfriend. And when I walked into that trauma ICU to visit Scott, even though I knew I was there for such an awful, awful reason, I felt like that was my space. And it just spoke to my heart. And I enrolled in nursing school right after that and started my very first job as a nurse in a trauma burn ICU at Ohio State, where I spent the first, well, I worked there from 2008 to 2021. So, um, I
That's a
worked
bit of
all through,
time.
yeah, I worked all through nursing school. I was, hired directly into the ICU and I was a nurse educator there. I worked through COVID and I absolutely love being an acute care nurse. It's just what has always spoken to my heart, helping people on the worst unexpected day of their life. It's just, I always get asked, like, how do I do it? Because I did burns for so long and, but burn patients are just so incredible. They look different from hour to hour
Hmm.
and day to day. And
Hmm.
it really just has always been my heart. It's been my calling.
Wow, wow, that's quite a story. I mean, first of all, it's a second career, and then you're literally catapulted into this. I can't. I think about what you're saying, I'm thinking, wow, that's a huge thing. But,
I,
how did it challenge you?
oh my gosh, in so many ways. Um, Starting as a brand new grad in ICU is challenging on its own.
Yeah.
And but I was never like a great student in school, in high school. I went to college, for a couple years and couldn't decide what I was doing, hence the insurance route with my family's business. But when I enrolled in nursing school, it all just clicked. And now I have a master's and it's always clicked with me. And so it has changed me in the way that I believe in myself and the confidence that I feel when I know that I'm helping someone through,
Mhm.
like I said, probably one of their worst days and worst unexpected days. And it just speaks to my heart and my soul. And it has changed me in the ways of how I look at myself, how I look at others,
Mhm.
how I
Mhm.
speak to others. Um, because I want others to feel how nursing has poured into me is how I want to then pour into others.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it must speak to your heart because um burns, you've done all this time in a burn unit, and burns is hard.
Oh,
Nursing is
they
hard, but
are.
burns is hard.
But they're also so beautiful.
Yeah.
And now that I've been more on the education side, I work for the American Association of Critical Care Nurses as one
Hmm.
of the nurses on staff who creates all of the education and standard setting documents and works with a team who provides clinical expertise to all of our departments that it requires to get our
Hmm.
work out to support our community of 135,000 members.
Hmm.
And this has changed me in ways too that, I never
Of
expected,
course.
you know,
Yes.
you don't realize how many lives you're touching. You know how many lives you're touching when you're at one facility, but then when
Hmm.
you open yourself up to a national position, the the
Yeah.
opportunities like this and meeting you, come up, and it's just wild.
Yeah. 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 I get it. I get it. What do you think you'd like to see change in nursing?
I would like nurses to be seen for who we know nurses are. I would like nurses to be thought of as their own individual profession and expertise. I
Yes.
always try to explain to people who are non-nursing or maybe brand new to nursing that we are all ingredients of a pie to get the patient back to baseline. You can't have a pie without flour, sugar, butter,
Yeah.
salt, and that takes all of us. That's the physicians, the respiratory therapists, dietary, housekeeping, nursing. It literally takes every
Yeah.
single one of us.
Everyone. Yeah. It takes everyone.
And
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting because I've actually had somebody tell me that they feel my job is so easy because the doctor just tells me what to do with orders. And I couldn't even be upset with the person because they truly believed it because look how TV
True.
shows portray us.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
it led to a very, very interesting conversation with her when I
Hmm.
kindly explained that I have my own license and we are great collaborators, but
Hmm.
that's truly what it means to
What
work
it means.
in healthcare
Hmm.
is collaborate.
Hmm. Hmm. Sarah, that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this. Because really, I want people to see us differently than they do. I want people to see us, as you said, for who we are. Because, as you say, we're portrayed very poorly, in my opinion.
Yes,
And I think that also we have not yet, as a group, fully used our voice to portray ourselves well.
I don't
So,
believe we have either. I have a friend who's going through a pretty critical situation right now, and the way that he and his wife have explained nurses and the updates that they provide. I actually told him on Sunday on Easter when I ran into him how thankful I was for him to see the impact that nurses make in his situation and others because we truly are the ones right there who, the doctors come in and we work with them, but it is our
yeah.
expertise, our eyes and touches who
Mhm.
really get the patients through with the rest of the team.
With the rest of the team. Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I can't even express how well you've just said that because that is the truth. That is the truth.
And so, in this national role, I think that's something that I really try to talk about is and really put my time into. So when I want to volunteer for something or when we're looking for something that we're creating at ACN or backing, I want it to be how we are exploring the nurse's voice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and in this national role where you get to influence so many lives, what do you think then that you see, like in the next decade or so, what is your big vision for this?
I see us using our voice. I see us starting to take on leadership qualities of maybe not positions, but the leadership qualities that each of us provide when we advocate for a patient or ourselves or each other, and really taking ownership of maybe areas that weren't always directly nursing. And by that, I mean, I'm working with a team of ECMO nursing experts, and we are really focusing on nurse-led ECMO interventions and areas within the hospital because it has always been shared between perfusionists and respiratory therapists.
Mhm.
And I believe it should continue to be shared. But I believe that nurses should own it on the floor and perfusionists should own it in the
Mhm.
operating room. And I think respiratory therapists should own it with everyone.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I really would love to see maybe some national standards come out that are, talking about how healthy work environments are going to
Yeah.
continue to evolve and really, because they really impact how we feel. And especially right now with brand new nurses who are still reeling from COVID and graduating during COVID and starting during COVID, because
Hmm.
they haven't had a chance to slow down and say, what am I doing? Who am I?
Yeah.
What is this?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think it's going to take us as experienced nurses to slow down and to really mentor and bring them up in order
Yeah.
for us to truly change across the generations.
Hmm. 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 Give them a little soft landing.
Yes. Yes.
What, what advice though? What advice do you give to someone though who says, you came through this again as a second career and as a propelled into it. So from that perspective, what advice do you give to someone who wants to be a nurse who says, I've always wanted to do this?
Jump in with both feet because no matter where you think you're going to land or want to land, nursing can take you everywhere.
Yes.
Nursing can take you to the bedside, and we need bedside nurses so bad. And I feel a little bit hypocritical saying that as I get my nurse practitioner and my doctorate of nursing practice. But I feel that I belong in the educational space, and I believe our bedside nurses are so important. Our clinical nurses, our legal nurses who are
Mhm.
helping, with different situations. And um, I just want nurses to know that just because you end up one space doesn't mean that you stay there for life. You can really write your own story with
Yeah.
nursing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. You absolutely can. It's a license to do anything, and to do it well. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, and don't listen to those voices that say if you're doing such and such, then you're not really a nurse. Of course you are.
We hold that license, we do those CEs, no matter where we work, we are still
Mhm,
impacting lives in some capacity. And
mhm.
that is truly what it means to be a nurse.
Yeah, yeah, it is truly what it means to be a nurse. I had been asking, as you said, what it means to be a nurse. This question came back to me because I've been asking people a little while ago what they see as the most essential quality of a nurse. If you could say that in one word, what would that word be?
Empathetic.
Empathetic. Yeah,
Because we may not have walked in their shoes and we may not have experienced what they experienced, but we support them through it regardless. And I think in order to really dig into who you are, it's empathy that shines through every time.
yeah, yeah. You said dig into who you are because that's really what you have to
You
do.
do, because when you come out of school, you're one person, and 20 years later, you're a completely different person. And that's
Yeah,
not good or bad. It
it
is
just is.
exactly, it is just the changes. And that nursing persona of you grows with you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And as you mentioned empathetic, And that's one of the things that you actually develop. It's empathy because, as you said, you haven't walked in that person's shoes, and yet you recognize those things that what you recognize what they're feeling, you recognize what they're going through. You've seen it so many times. You've gone it so many times in so many different ways that you can't help but be empathetic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe sometimes I'm too empathetic because I will cry right along with my patients or their loved ones and but I don't ever apologize for it because we are human.
Human, exactly. I was about to say that. I think at some point we've all done it either in front of them or we've gone somewhere and done it in private, but we're all human and those things really touch you.
They really do, and
Yeah.
I coined a term a couple years ago when I sat down to speak with somebody and I called it traumagic. We get to see the magic in the tragedy. We
Hmm.
are we are there to help them no
Yeah.
matter what they're walking through, no matter where we meet them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. It takes it takes great maybe I come back to the word empathy.
Yeah.
To do that though. It really does. So we talk though a lot these days about, self-care is, you know, big buzzword these days, but it comes out of the fact that there was a lot of burnout too. So I've been asking, what does self-care actually mean to you? And how do you care for you?
Self-care, I think, means different things on different days.
Hmm.
When I was still at the bedside and working as a nurse educator, sometimes self-care meant windows down and the radio up as I drove home from work. Um, Not more to just drown out my own thoughts and maybe kind of help myself work through whatever I was feeling. But then self-care also means meeting up with friends for breakfast or lunch, to enjoy someone who either works and walks the walk with me or somebody
Yeah.
completely different. And every day I take time to read, which is really probably my most important part of self-care. I truly will read anything.
Hmm.
You could see the amount of books sitting to the left now to be read, or the nightstand upstairs that read, maybe more of my nonfiction, fiction, where these are more, how to develop something or how to find something within inside of you or I have the new, well, not new, but I have the Black Angels book, here to read
Hmm.
about the nurses who worked through tuberculosis. And,
Hmm.
so I love to read, and I think it's maybe the most underrated way to care for yourself.
To care for yourself. Yeah, I get that. I'm a reader also, but also you started by saying the windows down and the music up. I could so identify with that. I have turned that music up and just drown out everything.
Everything. And my go-to is usually 90s rap or something from the 90s. I still believe that was 10 years ago and not 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
right.
My My kids laugh and they're like, Mom, listen to new music. And I'm like, why? This was the greatest, the 80s and 90s were the greatest music we had. And, throw some 70s in there as well. And I'm content.
You're good to go. I know. I remember one time, actually, as you're talking about this, I laughed to myself because I did have my music out. And sometimes with the music up and it's too loud, really. And I saw someone look at me like, aren't you an older woman? I could see that that was a thought going through that person's head because I think they heard the music and expected to see a young person. Like, just double take. And I was like, oh my gosh.
You're only as old as you feel. I wholeheartedly believe that.
I believe that with everything that I have. Trust me. Sarah, thank you so much for this conversation. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any last words?
I think just to any of the nurses out there who are listening to this or anyone who's considering nursing, go with your gut. I think that's one thing that nursing has really probably taught me the most is trust my gut.
Hmm.
You are, have that feeling or you have this inclination, follow it because you can never go wrong.
You can't go wrong. And if you want to learn who you are, just become a nurse if you want to find out who you are.
Exactly. This has been so lovely, Dale. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.